So I'm Huon Hooke, this is The Real Review, and today I'm talking to Christopher Tyrrell, who is a fifth generation member of the Tyrrell family of the Hunter Valley. Tyrrell's, of course, being one of our top wineries for Australia for 2021, and a very, very distinguished winery with a history of over 160 years. So, Christopher, you're the son of Bruce, grandson of Murray, and great-grandson of who? Avery or Dan?
Sorry, great-grandson of Avery.
Yeah, that's quite a tradition. Obviously, with a great tradition and a great collection of vineyards that you have, some of them very, very old vineyards, what is the single most important factor in the quality of Tyrrell wines?
I was thinking about that earlier, Huon. What is the single most important factor? And I think, am I allowed to say two things? I might cheat and say two things. I think firstly, it's the vineyards. You know, we've got these amazing old vineyards. I know that's a trendy thing to say, but you know, we've got 8 different bottlings now from vineyards over 100 years old, pre-phylloxera material, all dry grown. And you know, myriad. I think we make 10 different Shiraz now, 6 different Chardonnay, 11 Semillon, or you know, whatever it is. Lots and lots, and those great vineyard resources and the consistency of those great varieties in this region is probably one of the best things for us. And secondly, I think it's the people. And I think when people think about Tyrrells, it's a mistake just to think about the people with the last name Tyrrell. You know, the guys who work in our winery, particularly Andrew Spinnerzy, his first vintage was 1981. You know, our vineyard team, you know, they've all been here well over 15 years, most all of them. The 2 guys who work in the winery, in the cellar, are both over 30 years each. So I think the consistency of the team and the fact that, you know, you have generational change from a family point of view and consistency from the production team has always ensured that our wines are at the top where they need to be.
A lot of wine producers have a benchmark wine in their head when they're blending or when they're doing something important. They're thinking about the great wines that they've had. Is there a great wine that turned your head that you always have in the back of your mind?
I think there's a theme of wines, and I always think about, and certainly we talked about these wines here a lot in terms of what we're trying to achieve and what we want to make wines that live a long time. And we quite often talk about those wines that were made at Lindemans in the 50s and 60s, and even the early, like those Semillons or the Chablis White Burgundy Riesling as they were. But you know, Lindemans is certainly a different thing today to what it was back then. But they certainly, at the time, you could argue with the pinnacle of Australian winemaking, whether it was the vineyards, the people that they had making them. You know, they were doing stuff back then that was way ahead of its time. And you see those wines today. You and I have been at functions and drunk them together. They're mind blowing, those wines, and it kind of makes you reassess and go back and think about what you're doing the next day. And having, you know, Carl Stockhausen still around is you get to bump into him from time to time. But certainly for us, those Lindemans wines are ones that I always think about. And you know, I'd love for people to be talking about our wines in the same vein in years to come.
Yeah, it's a good point. You're talking about a bit of history there, and of course there are lots of family-owned wineries in the Hunter Valley that have great history apart from your own, and at least 2 of them are on the market at the moment that I can think of. 2 of the very oldest names in the Hunter, and you think, well, you know, what does it take to keep a family winery in the family? Yeah, is it luck or is it just good management?
Probably a bit of both, Huon. Probably a bit of luck early on, to be honest. I think, you know, if you go back to Murray's generation, you know, he looked after the cattle until his uncle Dan died, and then he had to come into the winery and work. The business was tiny, and we sold all of our wine. But ever since then, I guess Murray and Bruce came through with the boom of the Australian wine industry. But we love it. I'm not sure what else we do, to be honest. So we're probably a little bit, everyone who works in agriculture is a little bit mad. But I don't know. This is our place. This is, you know, this is us. I can't imagine doing anything else, to be honest.
And another point, I guess, about handing dynasties on from generation to generation is that the old dynasty has to be able to teach the new generation, and that seems to be something that's happened in the Tyrrell family. Your dad, I think, is probably a great teacher. You certainly taught me a few things over the years. I'm sure he's taught you a lot.
No, look, and I think that's right. And one of the things that quite often brings family businesses undone is generational change or generational different views on things. But I think the one thing that certainly Bruce and I share is we're here to kind of push each other, not here for him to tell me what to do and vice versa and force our ideas. I think everyone's pretty singular, and whether it's Spinner or our vineyard guys, this is where we want to be and this is what we've got to do, whether it's the vineyard stuff. And certainly you've seen our wines for a while now, Huon, and I'd like to think that they've gotten better over that time, and there's been big changes in the red winemaking, big changes in Chardonnay over the years, and we've always kind of, I think, been evolving for the better, and I think that's one of the things that sets us apart.
So of all the wines that Tyrrell's produce, and there's quite a range, is there a personal favourite that you have?
Look, as I mentioned earlier, Huon, we have a lot of wines, probably too many. We've got a bit of an obsession with bottling single vineyard things, but I thought about this earlier, and I'm going to say a white and a red, and probably the ones that I enjoy the most, let's just say. So we live and work in this, but at the end of the day, you've got to go home and enjoy a drink. So the ones that I enjoy the most, I'd have to say, would probably be like a 15-year-old HVD Semillon. I think is pretty hard to beat. That vineyard at that age is kind of, you get the best of youth and generosity. They're quite sort of bigger, softer wines. And then I think our 4 Acres Shiraz, because that Shiraz is so unique and it tastes different to all the wines we make. It tastes different to all the wines in Australia. And people either love or hate that vineyard. Even within our own team here at Tyrrell's, people love and hate it. It's really divisive, that wine. But I'm certainly in the like camp. And for a wine that is so medium-bodied or light to medium-bodied, that can still generate that kind of flavour and live for that long is, I find those wines really enjoyable.
Christopher Tyrrell, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Huon. Good to see you.